EA Sports just dropped UFC 6 ratings, and the internet is absolutely losing its mind right now. Not because of the graphics, not because of the gameplay mechanics, not even because of who made the cover. Fans are at war over numbers. Specifically, two numbers that have the entire MMA community split straight down the middle. And once you hear what's being debated, you'll completely understand why this has turned into a full-scale argument that's been running for days across social media. Before we get into it, let's set the scene properly. EA Sports UFC 6 releases on June 19th for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S. Alex Pereira and Max Holloway are the cover athletes, which is already a statement in itself. But the real conversation started way before anyone could even play the game. It started the moment EA began leaking fighter ratings, and two names in particular absolutely ignited the MMA fanbase. Islam Makhachev, Khamzat Chimaev, and the numbers attached to their profiles have people questioning whether EA Sports actually watches the fights or just reads Wikipedia summaries. So here is the situation. EA Sports built UFC 6 around a core promise: fighter individuality. The whole marketing angle is that movement, striking patterns, and physical strengths are now supposed to mirror how these athletes actually perform inside the octagon. That sounds great on paper. That sounds like exactly what simulation-style sports games should be doing. But when the ratings started circulating, a massive chunk of the fan base immediately felt that promise had not been kept, at least not consistently. And the category that sparked the most debate was not speed, it was not power, it was not even overall rating. It was takedowns. Khamzat Chimaev received a 99 takedown rating in UFC 6. Islam Makhachev received a 98. Read those numbers again. Chimaev scored higher than Makhachev in the takedown category. And that single decision from EA's development team was enough to send the comment sections and the timeline on X into complete chaos. Fans who have been watching both of these fighters closely for years could not wrap their heads around it. One person put it simply and directly, saying that respectfully, Khamzat's takedowns are nowhere near as technical as that rating suggests. And that's actually the polite version of what people were saying. The more detailed criticism went deeper than just disagreeing with a number. Fans started breaking down the actual mechanics of how each fighter takes opponents to the ground. The argument being made repeatedly was that Chimaev's takedown game, while undeniably powerful and effective, is built on a relatively narrow foundation. Double leg, single leg, explosive forward pressure. He gets the job done through athleticism and raw force. And nobody is denying that those takedowns have been brutally effective inside the cage. But the variety is limited. The technical complexity is not on the same tier as what Makhachev brings to that same category. Because Islam Makhachev is not just a takedown artist in the traditional sense. He is a combat sports technician who has spent his entire life training alongside and learning from Khabib Nurmagomedov, arguably the most dominant grappler in UFC history. Makhachev's toolkit includes throws, trips, body locks, judo entries, sambo transitions, and the ability to initiate takedowns from positions where most fighters would not even attempt them. Against the cage, in the open, in scrambles from clinch. He finds ways to get the fight to the ground from angles that other elite fighters simply cannot access. Fans were pointing all of this out and asking how a 99 makes sense for Chimaev when a man with arguably the most complete grappling game in the entire UFC sits 1 point behind him. But here's where it got more complicated. Because while the grappling debate was dominating the conversation, another crowd started pushing back from a completely different angle. These fans had a problem not with Chimaev's takedown rating, but with Makhachev's striking numbers. Specifically his punch power. The question going around was direct, and it landed hard. How does Makhachev have more punch power than Khamzat? And that is a legitimate question when you look at how both men have finished opponents with their hands. Chimaev has shown genuine knockout power throughout his career, and some fans felt his striking credentials were being undervalued, while his grappling was being slightly overvalued, which, depending on how you look at it, makes the whole ratings picture feel a little inconsistent. Then came the submission offense debate. Chimaev sitting at 96 for submission offense also drew serious criticism. Now, Khamzat's submission game is real. He has finished opponents on the ground, and he does have legitimate finishing ability. But 96 is a number that implies near-elite status at the very top of the submission game in a sport where you have fighters like Makhachev, Charles Oliveira, and others operating at that same level. Several fans pointed directly at his recent performances against Dricus du Plessis and Sean Strickland as evidence that number needs to come down. In both of those fights, finishing on the ground proved far more difficult than a 96 would suggest. The argument was not that Chimaev is a bad grappler. The argument was that the number does not reflect what fans actually watched happen in the cage. The cardio rating became its own separate conversation. A 92 stamina rating for Chimaev has been a genuine topic because questions about his gas tank have come up more than once in elite-level fights. Fans who have watched him closely pointed out that there have been visible moments where his output faded, and a 92 is generous by any reasonable standard when you put it against what people have seen with their own eyes during those later rounds. What makes all of this more than just a gaming debate is the timing and the context. Because these conversations are not happening in isolation. They are happening in the aftermath of Chimaev's loss to Sean Strickland, a result that genuinely shifted how a portion of the fanbase views him. Before that defeat, Khamzat was operating in that zone where hype and reality felt completely aligned. He was looking like a future champion, a generational talent, a fighter without a real weakness. The loss to Strickland did not erase his talent, but it did introduce doubt. And when EA Sports drops ratings that feel like they were built on the pre-Strickland version of Chimaev, while the fanbase is still processing what that loss revealed, the reaction is going to be intense. And that is exactly why UFC game ratings hit differently than ratings in other sports titles. In FIFA or Madden, rating debates happen, but they tend to stay within the sports gaming community. In UFC, the ratings become a direct statement about a fighter's standing, their legacy, their real-world skill level. Every number EA assigns gets read as a public judgment. Fans, fighters, and their camps all pay attention. A 99 in any category is not just a game mechanic. It is a declaration that this person is essentially the best in the world at that specific thing. And when the MMA community disagrees with that declaration based on what they have watched play out in actual competition, the pushback is going to be loud and it is going to be detailed. EA Sports UFC 6 is not even out yet, and it has already generated exactly the kind of engagement that keeps a game in the conversation for weeks before launch. Whether you think Chimaev deserves the 99 or believe Makhachev should hold that spot without question, the debate itself is what makes this moment interesting. It forces fans to actually think critically about what they have watched, to compare styles, to weigh athleticism against technique, power against variety. That is a genuinely compelling conversation regardless of what side you land on. June 19th is coming fast. The game will speak for itself once people get their hands on it. But until then, the rating debates are only going to get louder.